The pain and Orioles fan trauma of last year's ALDS certainly still lingers, but Thursday night's win did a little bit to help those feelings as the Orioles clobber the Rangers in game one of a four-game set. And I'll recap all the action coming up on this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast.
You are Locked On Orioles, your daily Baltimore Orioles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Fans, today is Friday, June 28th, 2024, and welcome back into the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I'm your host, Connor Newcomb, and coming up on today's episode, we are going to recap the Orioles' 11-2 drubbing of the Texas Rangers on Pride Night Thursday in game one of a four-game set. I'll get you the 5 things you need to know from that one, including an incredible display from the offense, Heston Kjerstad going deep, and another amazing start from Corbin Burnes. We'll talk a little bit about Pride Night in Baltimore here this year once again. And then finally, we have hit the halfway point of the season. Yes, that's right. Thursday night was game 81 of 162. So I'm going to give out my Orioles First Half Awards coming up at the end of the show. But that's all coming up on this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast, which is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah. The right stay can make you a fan of any city, even your rivals. So check out Booking.com for your stay today. So we start with an Orioles victory, and they have begun a new streak after snapping their 5-game losing streak with a win over the Guardians on Wednesday night. This one much easier, and they have now won 2 in a row. Final score from Oriole Park at Camden Yards on Thursday, the Orioles 11 and the Texas Rangers 2 in game one of a 4-game set. This Texas team, which is reeling, the defending world champs, now 37-44 on the year. But the Orioles hit the halfway point at 51-30, putting them on pace for 102 wins, which would, of course, give them one more at last year. But even more importantly is what happened in Toronto. What happened in Toronto was the Blue Jays beat the Yankees 9-2 on Thursday night, which means the Yankees and the O's are tied atop the AL East standings. But because there is no longer a Game 163 tiebreaker games, it's all done by your head-to-head record. And because the Orioles so far this year are 5-2 against the Yankees, if the season ended right now, the O's would win the division. And I'm saying the Orioles are currently in first place as we sit here on Friday. And I'm going to get you the 5 things you need to know from the Orioles blowout win over the Rangers on Thursday. And the first thing you need to know is I've been talking about throughout this month how Cedric Mullins has been getting better and better. Here on June 28th, I am ready to declare it. Cedric Mullins is back. Capping off, well, not capping off, there's still a couple more days in June, but continuing a fantastic month as Cedric picked up his first 3-hit game of the season on Thursday night. Got the start in center field, hitting 8th for the Orioles. He goes 3 for 4 with a double homer, 2 RBIs, and a couple of hard hit balls. Now, his average is still only up to 223, and the OPS still only up to 664 on the season. But if you look at the stats in June, he has been one of the Orioles' best hitters this month. Cedric is now hitting .310 with a .910 OPS in the month of June. That is an all-star level player if you just look at his June stats. Now, it's hard to do so because he was really bad in April and May, but he is coming on for the Orioles here. Just took him a little bit longer. And the other great thing about Cedric, he's continued to run the bases well and play great defense in center field. But the last 2 nights, the home runs he has hit in back-to-back games has looked like vintage Cedric Mullins. Back-to-back games, he gets a low pitch and he golfs it into the flag court in right field. Wednesday night, it was the go-ahead homer in the 7th. In this one, wasn't as consequential as a home run, I think most would agree, but was still a 2-run shot in the 4th that put the Orioles up 8-1 off of John Gray. This is the Cedric Mullins we know. This is the Cedric Mullins we love. You got to give patience to these guys who have proven themselves in the past, and the Orioles are proven right again by having some patience with these guys. It is paying off with Cedric Mullins right now. Second thing you need to know from the Orioles win Thursday is that Heston Kjerstad is making it very, very difficult to take him out of the lineup. Anthony Santander got the day off on Thursday, which allowed Kjerstad into the lineup to play right field for the first time since being recalled earlier this week. And he has now started 3 of the 4 games during which he has been up in the major leagues, 2 in left field and 1 in right field, and he continues to produce. Kjerstad hitting his first home run of 2024 on Thursday night, a blast out to dead center field in the 3rd inning that put the Orioles up 6-0 at the time, 104 off the bat, 415 feet to dead center. And it was also his first career 3 RBI game. He also rolled an RBI single through the right side in the 1st inning to open the scoring, put the Orioles up 1-0. He drew a walk in this one as well, ended up 2 for 3 with the homer, the 3 ribbies, a walk, and a hard hit ball for Heston Kjerstad. And I got to say, he played a pretty good right field defensively as well. Made 2 really nice running catches in this game. One was to get Corbin Burnes out of a jam in the 1st inning, kind of slammed into the wall in foul territory where making a catch. And then later in the game, he made a really nice running catch by the warning track in the right center field gap to take away extra bases. I thought he held his own in the 2 starts in left field this week. He certainly, I would say, looked good in right field. That's been the biggest question. Can you consistently trust him defensively in the outfield? I'm not ready to say yes yet because it's been 3 starts this week. You need a bigger sample size. But so far in 2024, he has looked better on the defensive end. And again, if he's going to hit like this and at least play serviceable outfield, it's going to be really, really hard to keep him out of this Oriole lineup and be even harder to at some point send him back down to AAA Norfolk. Third thing you need to know from this Orioles win Thursday is that, yeah, Mullins was good. Yeah, Kjerstad was good. But this was just another overall offensive explosion by the Orioles. They get into double digits again, 11 runs on 14 hits, only drew 2 walks in the game, but also maybe more impressive than anything else, the Orioles only struck out 3 times in this game. That may be the season low. I didn't completely look at everything, but that may have been the season low for the Orioles for strikeouts at the plate in one game. And just 1 through 9, they were dominant. Gunnar Henderson had another 2 hits, of course. He extends his league best active on base streak, 34 consecutive games. Gunnar has been on base. Adley Rutschman hit one of the other 2 Orioles home runs. I mentioned Mullins and Kjerstad. Rutschman went down to a knee to hit a solo home run in the 7th inning. Also had a sac fly. He was 2 for 4 with 2 ribbies. Got a home run from Colton Cowser in this game, blasted a ball the opposite way into the bullpen, and Cionel Perez made a fantastic catch with his hat on the fly. Cowser with a double and a home run in this game. You go down the list. I mentioned Kjerstad's 2 hits. Jordan Westberg had a big 2-run double in the 1st inning. Jorge Mateo had a hit in this game. 8 of the 9 Orioles starters had at least 1 hit. The only guy who didn't was Ryan Mountcastle, who had an 0 for 3, but did have an RBI, had a sac fly in the 3rd inning as well to the warning track in left center field. Just everybody contributing in this Oriole order. They just jumped all over John Gray, who had come in. I mean, he came in with a 3.05 ERA on the season for the Rangers. Like, he hasn't been healthy all year, but he'd been pretty good. Not as much lately. 2 starts ago, he gave up 9 runs to the Mets. And this one, the Orioles get him for 8 runs in 5 innings. They got 12 hard hit balls against Gray. I mean, he had nothing from the get-go. I mean, the Orioles put up 3 runs in the 1st inning and just didn't stop from there. They got another 3 in the 3rd, 2 in the 4th, just jumped on him, and they jumped on the bullpen. They got 3 more runs against the Texas bullpen as well. Just, it's so hard to navigate this Oriole order night in and night out, and they will jump on you and they will not stop. And that is what we saw on Thursday. Fourth thing you need to know from the O's win over the Rangers, switching to the pitching side, Corbin Burnes was just really, really good again for the Orioles. We mentioned how the O's went 8 consecutive games without a quality start. Well, now they've gone back-to-back games with their top 2 pitchers, Grayson Rodriguez and Corbin Burnes, each giving them 7 innings strong. This one for Burnes was 7 innings of 1-run ball. Now, he did allow 9 hits. The Rangers were hitting the ball pretty hard. He allowed 11 hard hit balls, but he scattered the hits. He didn't walk anyone. He struck out 5, and only one of those hits was a home run, a leadoff solo homer by Adolis Garcia in the 4th inning. And it was nice that it was only a solo shot, and the rest of the hits, he stranded those runners with some big strikeouts, some big outs when he needed them. And it wasn't Corbin Burnes at his absolute best. I mean, giving up 9 hits, it's really tough to get 9 hits off of Corbin Burnes. That ties a season high for most he's given up in a start this year. But He knows how to get out of those jams. He knows how to pitch. He knows he did not have his best cutter. It was still a good cutter. He did not have his best cutter. What he did have was a really good slider and a really good curveball on Thursday night. And he used those pitches to his best effect. He got 19 whiffs, his 37% swing and miss rate, third highest of any start this year for Corbin Burnes. He was getting those whiffs when he needed them with runners on base, and that allowed him to pitch through 7 innings. And quite honestly, he only threw 88 pitches in those 7 innings. The Orioles had a fairly well-rested bullpen, and you're up by a lot of runs. It's a chance to get some guys work. If this is maybe a different spot, if it's like 3 or 4-1, or the Orioles have a taxed bullpen, Burnes, I think, could have easily gone back out there for the 8th inning. That's how efficient he was at times as well. But just another great start from the Oriole ace. And the fifth and final thing you need to know from the Orioles' 11-2 win over the Rangers on Thursday night to open up this 4-game set is that the Orioles also got to save the bullpen in this game, because when you combine 7 innings of 1-run ball from your starter and an 11-run output from your offense, you don't have to use a lot of relievers, and you don't have to use the high leverage guys. Brian Baker gave up a run, but did get 2 strikeouts in the 8th. And then Nick Vespi had a nice looking 1-2-3 ninth with a couple of Ks to finish out the game. And realistically, you can make the argument that Vespi and Baker are relievers number 7 and 8 in this 8-man bullpen. You only had to use them, and they'd be available enough to where you could use both of them again here on Friday night if you needed to, which means the Orioles have a full available bullpen. All 8 guys, if they needed to, could pitch in Friday night's game. And that's not just big because it's always nice to have your whole bullpen available, but it's also big because Albert Suarez gets the ball tonight. And we know Suarez has really, really struggled in his last 2 starts. He's facing a good offense in Texas. If it gets out of hand again against Suarez, the Orioles have the ability now to tonight go to the bullpen early to keep themselves in the game and try and let this offense come back and win it if they need to. Just keep that in mind. If, Suarez struggles again on Friday, it's big to have a rested bullpen for his start. But the Orioles win it 11-2. I was in the ballpark. O's now 3-1 with me at the Yard this season. It was an awesome atmosphere. It was an awesome win. It was an awesome night at the ballpark again. It was Pride Night at the Yard, an event I usually attend at Oriole Park. I wanted to talk a little bit about it coming up next. But first, this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah. With summer travel heating up, especially travel for baseball games, it's time to explore those U.S. cities you always secretly wanted to learn more about. Yes, we are talking about your rival cities. With hotels, bed and breakfast, vacation rentals, resorts, and so much more on Booking.com, you might just find your perfect stay even in your baseball rival's city. Now, listen, I don't like the Yankees. I don't like the Red Sox, but I don't mind the Mets. And the Orioles do go to Citi Field in August to take on the Mets. And I'm kind of thinking about, do I get a hotel up in New York via Booking.com and check out Citi Field for the first time? I don't really care if I never go to Yankee Stadium, to be honest, but I'd like to see Citi Field. And you can do that too. From hotels that look over stadiums to family-friendly resorts, Booking.com has so many choices across the U.S. for your summer travel this MLB season. The right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even your rivals. Book today at Booking.com on the site or in the Booking.com app. And today's episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is also brought to you by FanDuel. Now, it is baseball time. I love sports. I love baseball. I love kind of when it's just baseball season. Like, we don't have the NBA playoffs anymore. We don't have the Stanley Cup playoffs. College World Series is over, but we still get baseball all summer long. You can just open up the FanDuel app and you just see baseball, baseball, baseball. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com/lockedon and start making the most out of your summer at FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. So the Orioles win it 11-2 over the Texas Rangers on Thursday night, taking game one of a big 4-game series, a series that is bringing back some memories because the last time the Rangers were here, they took the first 2 games of the ALDS and then eventually swept the Orioles out of the playoffs. But it was nice to get a teensy little bit of revenge with the blowout win on Thursday night. The other cool thing, of course, about the ballpark, about the Orioles Thursday night was it was Pride Night 2024. Now, I've been to, I believe, the last 3 Pride Nights at Oriole Park and at Camden Yards. This is something I talked about after being there at last year's Pride Night. And last year, the Orioles really went fully all out. They had the flag painted on the outfield. They did a lot of messaging through the Orioles Twitter account during the game about, LGBTQ plus youth and why they're at risk, and just a lot of facts and figures and notes about how to help and what goes on in different communities, and just providing awareness, which I thought was really important for the platform that the Orioles have. And now they didn't go as all out as they did last year. There weren't any tweets about it. The big flag wasn't on the field, but it was still a very nice celebration at Oriole Park. And that's baseline what a Pride Night needs to be. A celebration, and B, a way to make everyone feel welcome at the ballpark. And the hope is that the Orioles have created an environment that every night for all 81 home games, and hopefully more in the postseason, the Orioles are making everyone feel welcome at the ballpark. And there are people out there who do not want to make others feel welcome at the ballpark, and you are not welcome at the Locked On Orioles podcast. That's pretty simple right there. And I totally understand the issues with kind of corporate pride, as it's called, companies just kind of jumping on, putting out rainbow merch or holding a Pride Night, or, changing things up during June for their own monetary gain. That happens across the board at many, many companies. And there's some of that right here with the Orioles. There's some of that at Major League Baseball with every team that has a Pride Night. 29 of the 30 do. The Rangers don't. It was real sweet to have the Pride Night against the Rangers and send them very much packing with an 11-2 win. But I do feel like the Orioles, in comparison, do give it their full effort, do go all out on Pride Night to celebrate the LGBTQ plus community in Baltimore, in the region. And my hope is, for what they do, is they make fans feel safe and welcome, because baseball is truly for everyone. If you want to love baseball, you should be able to feel safe at a ballpark and love baseball. That is the bottom line right there. And, I think the biggest thing I've ever handed to John Angelos is that I had to hand it to him that he was one of the biggest supporters of the Orioles going full blowout Pride Nights over the past few years. And with the help of Greg Bader as well, who is still working in this front office. I know Angelos is still not fully 100% out, but he's pretty much out with David Rubenstein taking over. But it's nice to see that the Orioles still put together a fairly large event. They had a big giveaway with the Pride jersey as well. And it is just nice to see Major League Baseball, which in the past historically has not been welcoming to a lot of different groups of people. That is a history that Major League Baseball has to think about and has to accept, and has to move forward with the knowledge that there is an ugly past of this league, of this sport, of this country in general. It's something that's being talked about now with the Major League Baseball implementing the Negro League stats into kind of full Major League statistics and combining them with Major League Baseball and 5 or 6 other quote unquote major leagues to put together different leaderboards for the major leagues. And, some think that's great, and there are great parts of it. And there are also parts of it that are, are you kind of whitewashing the role that Major League Baseball played in pushing out Black players and putting them into another league by trying to combine them with the MLB statistics at this point? But it's kind of an all-encompassing issue of equality and welcoming in Major League Baseball, in baseball itself. It's been a sport to this point where there has not been an openly gay, active Major League Baseball player. It has happened in the NBA. It has happened in the NFL. It has happened in college baseball and plenty of other sports and leagues as well. But Major League Baseball is not there. And I think some of that is because of the culture of baseball is lagging behind on that inclusiveness, on being welcoming. And I think pride nights that these teams have, including the Orioles, can be a good step towards someone in Major League Baseball, because statistically, there are gay players in the league, in the minors and the majors. I mean, statistically, we don't know for sure, but again, if you just look at the stats and the percentages with the amount of players that play professional baseball, you feel fairly sure that there are players who, may be out to some of their teammates or coaches or people they work with, but are not openly out. And a lot of it you would think would have to do with, an old school culture of baseball that still exists in a lot of clubhouses. And the hope is that a pride night can do something, take a baby step towards fixing a lot of that. So that is why I enjoy that the pride nights are done. Again, it's not perfect. I will say that, especially when you look at what the Orioles did last year, they go about as full force as anyone. I think they lean into it more than anyone in terms of their pride night, and it's nice to see. And it's awesome to have my hometown team be that dedicated to celebrating everyone and welcoming everyone to the ballpark. Hopefully not just one night per year, but every single night at Oriole Park at Camden Yards. That's why I love going to Pride Night, and that's why I just love going to the ballpark in general. But the other thing that we hit on Thursday night, beside an Orioles win, besides Pride Night at the Yard, was the halfway point of the Orioles season. They have reached 81 games. They're 51-30. It's been a pretty great first half. We'll break down some of the top performances, hand out the Orioles First Half Awards to finish off the show coming up after this. But first, this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is also brought to you by Game Time. Now, if you are looking for tickets, I would advise you head over to Game Time. It is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch, with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. Now, I'm probably not going to make it to the ballpark again this weekend, but I am looking at that series when the Yankees come into town right before the All-Star break and saying, all right, can I get to the Yard to see the O's and the Yanks? And I'm going on the Game Time app to find the best deals. They've got last-minute deals where you can save up to 60% off buying last-minute tickets for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more, and that includes the Baltimore Orioles. So take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. So with that win on Thursday night, the Orioles have reached the halfway point of the 2024 season. Now, the funny part is when we talk about first half and second half, we always do pre and post All-Star break. But every year, the All-Star break is closer to the 100-game mark than it is the 81-game mark. We have hit the 81-game mark, and the Orioles are 51-30 halfway through the season. That is a 102-win pace, and they also sit in first place in the AL East, tied with the Yankees, but they do have the tiebreaker over New York. But I wanted to give out some first half awards for the Orioles to highlight some of the best performances. And we won't spend too much time on each individual award, but wanted to give my thoughts on all these categories. And then when I'm done, I want you to hop in the YouTube comments here. Of course, like, comment, and subscribe to the Locked On Orioles YouTube page. Leave a rating and a review wherever you listen to the show as well. But tell me in the comments who you would put in each of these award categories for the first half of the Orioles season. Let's start with MVP. There's really no question about this one. It's Gunnar Henderson, the Major League Baseball leader in WAR. He's got over 1,000 OPS. And oh, guess what? He is one of the top candidates for American League MVP right now. So I think it's pretty easy to say that Gunnar Henderson is the Orioles MVP at this point. You can make an argument in the comment section if you want to for someone else, but I'm feeling pretty confident that it's Gunnar Henderson. Rookie of the Year, I would still give to Colton Cowser at this point. Now, some of the stats I'm going to read off are through Wednesday's game, do not include Thursday at this point, but Cowser with a 113 WRC plus that went up with a couple of hits and a home run on Thursday night. We know how good he was in April. We know that he has struggled some in May and June, but he's still been worth over 2 WAR according to FanGraphs because the defense has been honestly elite. He has been, per StatCast, a top 5 defensive player in all of baseball this year. That is how good he's been in left field. He runs the bases well, still hits the ball incredibly hard. He's still got a 768 OPS. Not like he's been terrible across the board. It was a really good start. He slowed down a bit. He will pick it back up because that underlying data is so good. I still give the edge there to Colton Cowser. For the Orioles Cy Young Award, it's another easy one. It's Corbin Burnes, who is also one of the front runners for AL Cy Young. Another fantastic start for Burnes. Coming into Thursday's start, he was 7th in baseball in ERA, 10th in innings pitched. Those rankings probably going to go up for him after 7 innings of 1-run ball. What an incredible acquisition Corbin Burnes has been for this Orioles team. Reliever of the year so far, actually going to go with a guy on the injured list and give it to Danny Coulombe. There were multiple guys I considered. Craig Kimbrell, Inyer Cano, Jacob Webb were all in this category. But I'm going to give it to Coulombe, even though he's hurt and could be out until September. He's got surgery to remove some bone chips from his elbow. He stranded every single runner he inherited so far this year. That's to go along with a 2.42 ERA in 26 innings, in which he's only walked 2 batters. He's been insane on the season. The O's need him back, and they cannot get him back soon enough. He has been great. Biggest surprise on the plus side has been Albert Suarez. I know the last couple of starts have not been great, but he had 0 expectations. A guy who came in on a minor league deal, you're saying if all goes well, he just pitches as depth in AAA Norfolk all year, maybe gets a couple of spot call-ups at best. Instead, he has been a huge part of this pitching staff this year. If I told you that at the halfway point of the season, Albert Suarez would have thrown the 4th most innings on the Orioles, you would have told me I was crazy. But he's thrown 53 1/3 innings at a 2.70 ERA in 9 starts and 7 relief appearances. That has been huge for the O's. And again, hasn't been great lately, but overall, he has been enormous for a team that has lost so many starting pitchers to injuries this year. Albert Suarez has helped to keep this team glued together at times, and you got to give him a huge shout out for that. Biggest disappointment so far, I will say it with a caveat, it is Cedric Mullins, but he is certainly turning the corner. As I mentioned, he's hitting .310 with a 900 OPS in June. He's breaking out of biggest disappointment, but he was real bad in April and May. And to be honest, he's still only hitting .223 with a sub 700 OPS. So it can be better, but he's kind of pulling himself already out of that category at this point. Away from the player ones and more towards some team-specific or game-specific ones, best series win of the first half, I'm going to do April 29th through May 2nd in Baltimore as the Orioles take 3 out of 4 from the New York Yankees. They get some amazing pitching. They blitz Carlos Rodon in the series finale. I think, Ryan McKenna and Jorge Mateo both homering off of him. And they really kind of set the tone for this division race, taking 3 of 4. Yeah, there's been some other great series win. There's been some sweeps in there, but that series probably meant the most to the Orioles so far this season. Worst series loss, keep it plain and simple. It was last weekend in Houston, swept by the Astros, kind of blown out in all 3 games. That was not good. That was the worst series. Best individual win, there were a lot of them. The blowout of the Yankees was, of course, great. The O's have had some amazing walk-offs this year as well, some awesome comebacks. But I'm going to take Sunday, June 16th, an 8-3 win over the Phillies. Not that it was the most exciting win because there wasn't like some late drama or anything, but they just dominated what I think is the best team in Major League Baseball. It clinched the series for them. They hit 4 home runs off of Zach Wheeler, who's one of the best pitchers in the National League, and had never given up 4 home runs, hadn't given up 8 runs in a start since I think it was like 2018. And the Orioles just jumped all over him. They pitched it well. That was an amazing, just complete Orioles performance. That's my best win of the season. Worst loss, I'm taking us to May 22nd in St. Louis, the series finale when the Orioles lost 5-4 to the Cardinals, and the Cardinals completed the sweep of the O's, the Orioles getting swept for the first time in 2 years. Now, the Orioles have had worse, way worse blowout losses where they look completely lost at the plate and were just terrible. This game was awful because of how many weird, bad things happened. The O's had a lead. They made multiple errors, allowing a little league home run in the middle of the game to let St. Louis take the lead. And then if you remember what happened in this game, they were down 5-3. They had first and third with nobody out, hit a fly ball to the wall, and Cedric Mullins made a terrible base running gaffe in which he was doubled off at first base, which basically ended what would have been a 9th inning rally that looked like the Orioles were going to tie the game. Just a disaster game. If you can remember back to that, that is the worst loss. Best individual day at the plate. There's been a lot of great ones, but I'm going to give it to April 11th. Colton Cowser in Boston in a 9-4 Orioles win, 10 innings. Cowser went 3 for 5, 4 RBIs, hit his first 2 major league homers, whacked one over the monster early in the game, and then had the crushing blow, a 3-run homer in the top of the 10th inning. He hit, I mean, I don't think I've seen a ball hit harder or further at Fenway Park than what Cowser did to that baseball to put the Orioles up 9-3. That was an impressive day at the plate. And the best performance on the mound, again, guys like Bradish and Rodriguez and Burnes have had amazing starts. But I'm going to go to June 12th against the Braves. Cade Povich comes in facing Atlanta, second major league start, one of the best lineups in baseball, and he goes 6 scoreless innings, 6 Ks, and no walks from the rookie lefty in an Orioles 4-2 win. I was just so impressed by Povich that night, how poised he was, how Brandon Hyde let him work out of a jam and finish 6 innings against this Atlanta Braves team. It was just so impressive. That's the start that rings into my head that keeps me saying, hey, Povich deserves to stay in this rotation, maybe for the long haul. That was really, really impressive. But again, let me know in the comments who's winning all of those awards for you for the Orioles first half. But 51-30 in the first half, not too shabby for this O's team. And now they look to continue their success against the Rangers. They play the final 3 of this 4-game series this weekend. Starts tonight at 7:05. Max Scherzer makes his second start off the IL against Albert Suarez. Then Saturday at 7:15, that game's on Fox. Michael Lorenzen goes for the Rangers, and the before-mentioned Cade Povich goes for the Orioles. And finally on Sunday, another national TV broadcast, Sunday Night Baseball at 7:10 on Sunday. The lefty Andrew Heaney for the Rangers. Cole Irvin goes for the Orioles, looking to bounce back. And I'll be back with you on Monday, recapping the final 3 games of this series between the O's and the Rangers. And guess what? It'll be July when I'm back with you on Monday, and we will be talking Orioles baseball. But until then, I'm Connor Newcomb, and this has been the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.